iMessage locks people into iPhone because without iMessage, no one has a reason to buy an iPhone. What would happen to the world if Google shut down all their apps for 7 days to make a statement about how stupid this iMessage thing is? Hello everybody and welcome to another video. This is your host, Dread Pirate Maki, and today we're going to talk about Tim Cook telling the world that the solution to the green bubble problem is to buy an iPhone. Apple has implied this in the past, but quite literally Tim Cook said it in an interview. Our customers are not requesting this. If you want to be able to send high quality pictures of your kids to your mom, buy her an iPhone. That's literally what he said, word for word. All right, so this is actually not going to be a super long video because I don't have a lot of thoughts on this. I just feel very strongly about it, and it's on Twitter right now and trending because Tim Cook did some stupid interview and he pretty much dissed 2/3 of the world that use something other than an iPhone, or maybe can't afford an iPhone, or doesn't like iPhone. Imagine that. The interviewer said, I want to send pictures of my kids to my mom, but she can't receive them. And he said, buy her an iPhone. That's really screwed up. Google has announced they are going to shut down all Google services on apps, not through like Safari or Chrome, on every phone that's not an Android phone, because Android is owned by Google. So iPhones and like Huawei and phones that can't get Google services for 7 days. Google Maps, Google Photos, Google Search, whatever you use through them, your Google account, Meet, Gmail, all of those proprietary Google services that have been catered and pushed out to the public on every single device imaginable, which does not happen organically. Google's development team specifically goes to Android, to Fire OS, to whatever they're trying to develop on, to Windows, and they make sure that their products work on every platform to get a consistent experience. Apple obviously doesn't do that. My first question is, if Apple did do that, besides iMessage, what would you actually use on a phone that's not an iPhone? If you had to move to an Android phone, would you be like, I'm going to download Safari, I'm going to download Apple Maps? No, nobody would do that. Maybe Notes, iMessage, maybe FaceTime. That's all I can think of. Imagine if Google had the same perspective Apple has, according to Tim Cook's interview, and said, if you want to use Google services, buy your mom a Google phone. If you want to use Google Maps, buy a Google phone. Suck it up, buy it. Without Google, the rest of every phone pretty much doesn't work. Imagine Apple Maps. Apple Maps just got good over the last 2 or 3 years. Is even comparable at all to Google Maps in the last 2 or 3 years. It's been abysmal up to then. And anybody who is like, I'm an Apple Maps user, clearly is an Apple shill. Like, nobody naturally is like, I'm going to use my Apple Maps and get, you know what I mean? What would happen to the world if Google shut down all their services, shut down all their apps for 7 days to make a statement about how stupid this iMessage thing is? iMessage locks people into iPhone because without iMessage, no one has a reason to buy an iPhone. If you could get iMessage on any device, would you still buy an iPhone? Maybe. Many fewer people would buy iPhones if iMessage was available on any device. But Tim Cook clearly doesn't care about other people's usage, what the world is asking for, we've seen with hashtag get the message, just doesn't care. Like, he straight up said, I don't care, buy your mom an iPhone. It's not something that our users have been requesting. He pretty much said, screw you. What are you going to do about it? And not to mention, he used such manipulating language, and he said, Steve Jobs really wouldn't like this. Like, come on. That's like, you know how many people, Steve Jobs changed the world. You know how many people respect Steve Jobs? And using language like that is so manipulative. This is literally just a cult. Like, Apple has been called a cult before, but this is literally cultish behavior. Not like, oh, you guys love Apple so much it's a cult because you wear like the Steve Jobs shirt. No, like, that is weird anyway. But this is quite literally cultish behavior. Your leader speaks, says one phrase, and everyone else parrots it and says exactly the same thing and agrees full-fledged. That's not cool. Telling an interviewer, if you want to send high quality videos of your kids to your mom, buy your mom an iPhone. What if the mom has an iPhone and he has an Android phone? No matter, either way, this doesn't work. And nobody else in the history of the world has been this locked down about messaging. It's just because Apple has nothing else to offer. That's my opinion. The blatant disregard for anything remotely innovative. We're living in a time where the highlighting feature of a brand new iPhone is software notifications around a pill notch. That's the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Literally nothing else was changed in the phone, except maybe like some megapixels in the camera, bigger sensor. Battery, design, what it's made of, all the same. It literally just changed the notch on two phones, the Pro models. So if you spend a month's wages on your phone, surprise, you get fancy notifications. And you know what else you get? No SIM card. So us who are actually working in cell phone carriers, because carriers are run by boomers and they are still 15 years in the past. Think of where we were in like 2008 to 2012. That's where carriers are right now. Nobody knows what an eSIM is. To apply an eSIM at AT&T, you have to physically get an actual eSIM SIM card, scan it into the system, and then scan the QR code on the eSIM on the phone. It's exactly the same process. It's the most inefficient thing in the world. An iPhone, of any phone I've ever used, has easily the most inefficient eSIM setup. It's confusing. It asks about data. It asks about voice. It asks about, they're good options, but you know who cares about that? People who want to use SIM cards because they travel internationally. That's who cares about that. Not your grandmother or your mom coming to buy a new phone because she has an iPhone 7. And that's who is going to have to deal with this. The normal, regular people. While, you know, the Apple shills sit up there at Apple Park and tell us just to sell more iPhones if we want to send pictures. It's the most disrespectful thing I have ever heard from a company. Just blatant, I don't care what you think, buy an iPhone. To counterpoint, Tim Cook, who apparently has some sort of made-up version of Steve Jobs in his head. Steve Jobs was about innovation, change, and a more personal connection between a computer and the individual. Which of those things does the iPhone have? It's got a great design. Same design as the last 5 years. It has iMessage. Would you really still buy an iPhone over a 50 megapixel zoom on a Samsung if iMessage was not in the picture? Would you really look at the Pixel's camera bar and the design and be like, yeah, I don't like that. I'm going to go to this iPhone that still has a notch and still uses a 60 hertz screen and doesn't have a SIM card. I would rather less options, thank you. Who is doing that? Apple has the world twisted around their finger, and nobody knows because, like I said, it's cult behavior, cultish behavior. I know the iSheep thing is a joke, but it literally is sheep behavior from somebody who grew up around a lot of oppressive religious areas, people being manipulated into following Apple users because the rest of the world apparently doesn't matter. 2/3 of the world that uses Android phones doesn't matter. You need to be the ones to go out and retweet every single thing that has hashtag get the message in it and tell Apple, we need this. I don't need blue messages. We don't need to be able to iMessage on Android. We just need RCS implemented. That's it. The 2022 version of SMS, which came out on the iPhone 4. That's it. That's all we're asking for there. So please, do us a favor because no one listens to you if you don't have an iPhone. And send Apple the message. I don't know about you, but I don't even use an iPhone. And I'm so tired of being disrespected by Apple as a company. by Tim Cook specifically now, by people who even saying stuff like close your rings or texts go green, stuff like that is marketing for Apple. And that's the reason that they don't care. And they just don't give a crap about anyone else, because they see that and they're like, well, you're not part of that. Implies if you tell me close your rings, I don't have an Apple Watch. So I'm going to be, well, what do you mean I'm not part of that crew? And then the other person's like, oh, okay. It's divisive. It's divisive for no reason. I know I've said it. I can't think of any other more disrespectful thing. I can't think of anything else more disrespectful that a company has said directly to its own customers, and the customers just take it. And they're like, yeah, we know. I've never seen anything like this before. It's gotten too far. And one company controls far too much of the industry. And it's time for it to stop.